Prayer to Swami. Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying in your word, in your Bhagavatha Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. I am just going to log in online because I just want to make sure that I follow up on any questions that we may have. So give me 1 second. All right. So with that, I think we'll just move on. Reminder to everyone to kind of mute your cell phones, please. And as always, let's be respectful and have an open mind. We'll try to leave our ego outside. That is almost impossible as I realize that, but that will help us learn more faster and better. So please feel free to ask questions. This is a platform that can help us change. So without questions, that would be hard. So let's move on. Just a review from last session. So we were discussing the discourse on forgiveness from chapter 7. And we talked about action of forgiveness, what it means, and how it depends on nature of the person. We were talking about Prithviraj, I think, and Prithviraj, right? Yeah, Prithviraj and Gauri, I think, and the act of forgiveness and how it should be done, and that how it can be done out of love, and it is basically to not hold a grudge. And then we moved on to talk about focusing on one's own self as forgiveness as part of self development. Forgiving own self is the most important. We talked about that. And we talked a lot about repentance and how ego always ends up justifying the actions, our own actions, basically. So it doesn't let us feel like we are guilty in the first place to start with the forgiving process for our own selves. And then we moved on to forgiveness and liberation, where we just talked about forgiveness, how forgiveness leads to peace, and how we can grow spiritually. So if anyone has anything else to add, it'll be.
Sairam, just a clarification. I don't think we have gone to that extent of forgiveness and liberation.
Yeah, I
Last
know. I
session.
saw the last thing. I just added it here. I agree. We just touched upon it. We didn't really go into it. But when we talk about liberation at a later chapter, we'll come back to forgiveness because we have to talk about liberation in later chapter. So when you ask forgiveness from someone else, that's what I heard. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, see, if you let's say two persons are involved, and you have said something unknowingly, and you have offended the other person, then you realize that it is easier to ask forgiveness to that person because it's you know that you have offended. But what about ourselves? See, our ego will come and then justify whatever we have done to ourselves. So it is very difficult for us to seek forgiveness for our own actions that is within us. It's difficult because our that Maya will come and say it will justify whatever you have done as right. So it is very difficult to identify the mistakes there. That
Correct.
is the thing.
Agreed. All right. So we can move on. Um, I don't think there are any other open questions or anything that we want to go back to. We can out here. Because I had actually thought that today, Vidura, the counselor, we actually talked about that chapter. That's where we went on to discussing how Vidura walks into Dhritarashtra, wakes him up, kind of um, forces him to think about his actions and what his next step should be, how his dharma, what is his dharma right now, what is the right action he should be doing. And we did all of that. And then we ended up talking about forgiveness because at the end of the day, that is a major takeaway from that chapter, at least when we discussed it, because we saw how Dharmaraja was able to forgive Dhritarashtra and take care of him as a duty as his king. So again, just wanted to bring back what all we discussed for chapter 7, and then we moved on to talking about forgiveness under that chapter. Are there any other takeaways for you from that chapter? Because now we'll move on to chapter 8 today, and then we'll talk from that chapter perspective onwards. So it's a good time to write your takeaways from chapter 7. Yes, please.
Sairam, apart from, we focused only on the forgiveness part of this chapter.
Correct.
But if you look at Vidura's role there in this chapter, how he was able to persuade Dhritarashtra and open his eyes to see the importance of spiritual progress and not relying on, I mean, not even because his Maya, Dhritarashtra's Maya was camouflaging, and he was completely oblivious of the evils or the negative things that he has done.
Yes.
He was just basking on the glory or the hospitality of Dharmaraja. So if you look at Vidura's role there, I think we can learn a lot from his role and about how we can persuade people to go towards spiritual progress. No,
So
Soumya is shaking her
yeah,
head.
so I don't think we can persuade, but the thing is Vidura can. So Vidura apparently, actually just last week sometime when we were talking about it, Shobha actually mentioned about Vidura Niti. Before then I didn't even know that there is an entire on Vidura. So I was reading up about it, and of course there's a lot of things that we can actually discuss about Vidura's character in general, but he is also a very learned scholar. So his role, he's always been in sync. I would always go back to his unity of thought, word, and action. So that kind of person can probably persuade someone else to do right kind of action. But like Swami can persuade us to do things that we would never do, because we don't have that kind of mind, we don't have that kind of leader within ourselves. Once we have that, we are capable of perform, I mean, I think leading. I don't think we can persuade others, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that is a saying, right? That you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink.
Correct.
So even to ourselves, like for example, exercise. Okay, you know, we tell ourselves exercise is good, exercise is good, but how many days we just skip it like that, right? So unless and until we are willing to keep aside the time, if
Correct.
so, each individual has to be open to that learning, and no amount of other person telling what to do is going to make any changes to you. That's
And
my thought
and
process.
that is also the reason why I asked, would it help Dhritarashtra to go into the forest at the end of the day?
Exactly.
Because he is really not there. He is wondering if his wife is capable of following him. He's so involved in that's why that question I had also.
So
Yeah,
the same
please
thing
go
I
ahead.
wanted to just mention, which you just mentioned, at that age of almost 100 years, Vidura told him to go to forest. So let's look at the complete perspective. He has lived his life. He has nothing left to live for. He has lost his sons. He has lost everything. Even the ego has not helped. Whatever he attempts, now there's nothing to lose or gain. And now Vidura has told him to go to forest. So what exactly was the motive of whole thing? I mean, at this stage of sannyasa, this is not sannyasa, or ideally, it's not sannyasa at this
Right,
stage.
right. But in those days, I guess that's what Vidura's, because of we have those four phases of life, and the last phase is always to put yourself in the forest. Maybe that is what it is. But in general, now as we get older, I feel we are looking for more comfort. Say, I want a nice bed to sleep in. I cannot sleep on the floor and do all those austerities. As you grow older, I mean,
No, I thought more in terms of like Vidura having love for Dhritarashtra and speaking in that,
that
voice or
tone.
tone just for that. But Dhritarashtra, had he not been open to it, right, it would never have happened that, sorry, not Duryodhana, I'm getting, what is it?
Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra, had he
Yeah.
not been open to it, he would not have gone, you know.
Yeah.
So it is multiple folds, and you cannot change anyone.
But what at the same token, I think it's important to keep saying that. to the ones who you think will be willing to listen. Whether they listen or not is up to them. But it's our role to keep telling. I think that's what it is, because
No.
one
That
time
will
they
be
may.
nagging.
No. Swami says after the age of 21, stop advising.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You
what
know,
he
so
says. That
you do not have the authority to advise anyone, is what Swami says. So you cannot.
you
y-
can help, you can help, but you cannot change their mindset.
No, I don't. I completely agree. We
Yeah,
cannot
We cannot
change,
change the
yeah,
mindset.
but in our attempt. I think we should encourage, or we should tell them that this is the avenue that you can take. I think for at least for the near and dear ones. Forget about friends or any. I'm not even going to the friends. I mean, like brothers or close people who will be willing to lend a ear to you. I think.
I,
I,
yeah, please come.
so I think Vidra's intention is more than taking him to forest. He is kind of trying to convert him because he is in uh, in Dharmaraja's palace
Yes,
enjoying. So he's not just eyes physically closed, his even mental eyes are closed. He never thought of leaving that comforts, thinking about spirituality and getting disconnected from the relation, like physical relations and all other comforts. So he lost sons, and as he said, so he lost sons, everything, but still he's never giving up the comforts and the intimacy with the relations, even though Dharmaraja is still taking over. Dharmaraja is so affectionate to me, he's taking care of me,
correct,
so I don't think about anything else.
right.
But end of the day, the spirituality or the thinking about spirituality didn't enter his brain. That's where Vidura is more focused, I think, asking him to accompany him to the forest. I mean, that's going to forest, or that's not the secondary point, basically.
Yeah, so I think coming back to that, I think it is the chapter is focused on Vidura for a reason. So a character like Vidura or a person like Vidura has really talked the walk or walked the talk. So in a lot of ways, as I kept reading about, I spent an entire week reading about only Vidura. So my head is completely full of what all he has written and what he has accomplished. But at the end of the day, what he's also defined the way for the king, right? He has written how a king should behave as well. But so he has the right to actually guide, uh, you know, guide Dhritarashtra out of his little circle of whatever he's going through. But I don't think we all can use such a guide. But I don't think we can be the guide in every sense of the way that happened there. Yeah, please go ahead, Manoj.
So what Venkatji was just mentioning, and Somaji did not agree with that, is to advise or suggest someone. As she mentioned, just we can take the horse to the water and we cannot force him to drink. But doing the job of taking to water is a big deal. That's what he is saying. So we cannot disregard that aspect of Venkatji, that why would we not do that effort? Don't we try to teach our son? Don't we try to teach our students in the school? Don't I counsel my patients in the hospital? Don't we do that? We should be doing it. And Swami might have mentioned in some other context that above 21, we don't. So we don't push anyone, but it's our duty to guide everyone. If you see everyone as yourself, why would we not guide everyone and take them to the water at least? The final phase
Agree.
would be their wish or not their wish. But I mean, that's the reason I sometimes get very, very hyper also during the study circle, that why would my colleagues not understand that aspect of it? People tell me, oh, you don't have to worry so much. I mean, do your journey, everyone will do their journey.
Yeah.
No, no, we all have to hold hands. Why would we not hold hands with each other? I mean, that's humane. That is human nature. We cannot be stones. We are humans. We have that heart. We have affection for our at least nears and dears, your friends, colleagues. Why would you not support everyone? Elevate. I mean, finally, it's their wish. But what about our duty? This is our duty to do that. That for our loved beings at least.
Yeah. So my thought is not even advising, not from a standpoint of, oh, I know better, or not like that. As a guide, sometimes reminding they themselves, for example, doing exercise, right? I mean, I know many times you remind, I mean, let's do the exercise. I mean, that's a simple thing. That's a thing that we should be doing. That's what I am thinking.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So instead of preaching, what I think is if we make ourselves better, sometimes people come to you. Let's say we're talking about exercise. So if we are getting better, then people will come to you saying, "What are you doing?" So sometimes we just have to keep doing things on ourselves. If we become better, then people will come to you, and then you get a chance to tell them what you're doing. Sarah.
Agreed. Absolutely. So yeah, so these are a few takeaways I would think. I wanted to move on to the next chapter. And we'll come back to Vidura. To your point, I understand what you're saying. So we can come back to Vidura as a character, but to learn from him is a completely different. I thought it takes away from Bhagavata Vahini, and that's why I'm moving along, because Vidura has really he has a lot of things that he has put in place, and we can definitely discuss him. Swami has talked about Vidura quite a bit. Even when he talked about intellect, he has talked about his nature in general. So I also found quite a few discourses mentioning Vidura on our thing. Yeah, please.
Want to mention it in one of your messages, we all can read, and in the next couple of next sessions, we can go over it.
Sure, absolutely. Sounds good. All right. So with that, I think today we'll talk about Dhritarashtra transformed, because last chapter we had ended with Dhritarashtra going away to the forest. And in this chapter, Swami just brings together how Dhritarashtra has been transformed and how he leads his life. And then also this chapter brings about a few other characteristics of the Pandavas that I thought was so much worth discussing. So we will go ahead with that. I'm going to start the chapter, and I hope.
Bhagavata Vahini, Chapter 8, Dhritarashtra transformed. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari reached the forest along with Vidura. Vidura searched for a site where they could practice austerities. He also advised them on the best means of seeking self-realization. They spent the days in holy company and holy thoughts. Meanwhile, in Hastinapura, as soon as the sun rose, Dharmaraja woke up, finished his ablutions, and performed the ritual worship of the household fire. He gave away in charity the usual daily gifts to the needy. He then proceeded on foot towards the palace of Dhritarashtra, his paternal uncle, for he never began his daily round of duties without taking on his head the dust of his feet. The king and queen were not found in their chambers, so he waited for some little time, expecting them to return, searching for them all around, even while he was waiting anxiously for their return. He noticed, however, that the beds were not slept upon, the pillows did not bear marks of use, the pieces of furniture were undisturbed. He doubted for a moment that the rooms might have been reset by someone after use, but no, some fear got hold of him that they must have left. So he hurried towards the room of Vidura to discover that he too had fled. His bed was unused. The attendants reported that the sage did not return to his room from the king and queen to whom he had gone. As soon as he heard this news, Dharmaraja had a shock. He went back to the palace and searched every room with great care, and his worst fears were confirmed. His hands and feet shivered in despair. His tongue became dry. Words did not emerge from his mouth. He fell on the floor as if life had been ebbed out. Recovering, he blabbered indistinctly. He called on Vidura more than once, and the officers around him became afraid of his future. Everyone rushed to the presence, asking, "What happened?" Sensing some calamity, they stood in a circle, awaiting orders from the master. Just then, Sanjaya came there, all of a sudden. Dharmaraja rose and caught hold of both his hands. He said, "My parents have gone. Alas, I found the chambers empty. Why did they behave like this? Have they disclosed anything to you? Tell me. If I know where they have gone, I could fall at the feet and crave pardon for all my failings. Tell me quickly, O Sanjaya, where have they gone?" Sanjaya too had no knowledge of their whereabouts. He only knew that Vidura must be at the bottom of the whole affair. He too shed tears, and holding Dharmaraja's hands in his, he said in a voice that shook with tremor, "Lord, believe me, I am speaking the truth. Of course, Dhritarashtra used to consult me and ask for suggestions even in small matters, but in this affair he has acted without discussing with me or even informing me. I am struck with wonder at this act. Though I was near him, I did not in the less know about this journey. I cannot also guess why he should have done so. I never dreamt that he would deceive me thus. He showed me some respect and had some confidence in me, but he has played me false. I can only say that this is my bad luck." Sanjaya started weeping like a child. Dharmaraja consoled him, saying that it was really the consequence of his own sins and not Sanjaya's. He said, "The extent of our bad luck can be gauged from this. Our father left us even while we were children. This uncle brought us up from the tender age. We were revering him and tending him as both father and uncle. I must have committed some error out of ignorance. I am incapable of doing so consciously. Both uncle and aunt were broiling in the agony of the loss of their 100 sons. I was eager to offer them some little peace, and so myself and my 4 brothers were wholeheartedly serving them, so that they might not remember the anguish of their terrible loss. We took care that no little point was missed while serving them. There was no diminution of reverence or affection. Alas, that they should have left this place. What a tragedy! What a terrible blow!" Thus lamented Dharmaraja. "My uncle and aunt are both aged and weak, besides they are blind. I cannot understand how they managed to leave this place. How they must be suffering now. Not even one attendant accompanied them. Of what benefit are these large numbers that I have? Grouping along, they might have fallen in the Ganges by now. Oh, how unlucky I am! I fostered them both like the apple of the eye, and at last I have allowed them to meet this tragic fate." Dharmaraja was beating his breast and expressing his deep distress. The brothers heard the lamentation, and they flew fast to the side of the weeping Dharmaraja. Kunti, the mother, also inquired anxiously the reason for the grief. She peeped into the chambers, and not finding Gandhari and her brother-in-law, she asked Sanjaya what had happened to them. Sanjaya could not reply. He could only shed tears. "Where have they gone in this aged and helpless condition? Tell me," she cried. But no one could answer. Meanwhile, Dharmaraja called the brothers to his side and made some gestures which they couldn't understand. Then he mustered courage and rose from the ground. He managed to narrate them the happenings since sunrise. He asked Bhima to send forces in all directions to search for them and find them, for they wouldn't have gone far, since they were blind and could not travel fast. They must be groping their way. Bhima, Nakula and Sahadeva obeyed their brother's order and sent troops in all directions. They rummaged all the roads, lanes and by-lanes, peeped into wells, searched in all tanks and lakes, but could find no trace of the blind couple. Believing that they must have fallen into the Ganges, they got experts to scour the banks and even dive into the waters to discover their fate. All their efforts were in vain. So the Pandava brothers were sunk in grief that they could not save the king and queen from that horrid fate. Meanwhile, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari were joyfully contemplating on God, seated in prescribed postures with their minds rigorously under control. When they were thus lost in the divine contemplation and immersed in that supreme joy, a huge forest fire swept them, consuming them too in its fierce onslaught. Vidura had a great desire to cast off his body at the holy center of Prabhasa Kshetra, and so he escaped the fire. And filled with joy at the immense good fortune of the couple, he continued his pilgrimage and reached the place which he had chosen as a scene of his exit. There he cast off his body, which was composed of the 5 elements, and which therefore was material and momentary.
Okay, Sairam, that was the end of the chapter, and it feels very abruptly ended. But here I think there is so many different emotions. First thing, I think we should look at the Pandavas, the way they have reacted to something like this. The second point that I had while thinking about this chapter was Vidura. I mean, why did he take them in the middle of the night without informing anyone, or informing at a later time? Whatever it is, it would have not caused this much distress to the Pandava brothers after taking care of their uncle and aunt, or whatever it is. And the other thing that I felt, if Vidura was so aware, was it time for Dhritarashtra to go, so he did not help them get out of the fire? It was just so those are things that I came away with this chapter. So there are so many questions in my mind now when I go back and look at this. But first thing I think we should appreciate is the way Dharmaraja reacted. Right? His reaction was so caring. So anyone else have anything? It's act of nature, Manojji. It's act of nature.
Sairam, Dharmaraja's reaction is very typical of a very affectionate son.
Correct.
Or in this case, brother's
Nephew.
son,
Yeah.
nephew.
Mhm.
But in all practical purposes, I think Dharmaraja had been treating them as his own parents, because he doesn't have any, he has mother Kunti, but he doesn't have his father. So I think his approach is more, very emotional, and he was more worried about
Right,
how they will go into the forest. He doesn't know whether they've gone to the forest, but he doesn't know how they will need the.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that I'm talking about. Like his reaction after everything Dhritarashtra really put him through. He still respected that. He knew his duty. He knew his dharma. That kind of reaction,
I think Dharmaraja has forgotten all the things. See, he's a very ideal person that way. See, what Swami says is, when anybody does anything bad to you, you should forget immediately. Whatever bad you have done, you should never forget.
Yeah.
So anything good that you have done, you forget. So that is the typical thing. So he is leading that life. So he has completely forgotten all the negative things that Dhritarashtra has done to. At least that's what I can
Yeah.
think of. So he's just looking at him as his parents, and he wants to take care of him. But more than that, see, if you look at Vidura's actions there,
Right.
I think Vidura considers when that fire comes, and he considers his role is done, because he feels that it is better for Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to die in that forest than live in Dharmaraja's palace. that is his. I think
Yeah.
he mentions that also.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just I didn't have any other topics in general, but definitely Dhritarashtra's, Dharmaraja's actions and his feelings. So I know that there is a little murmur here, just saying that Kunti is also there is a story where Kunti also leaves uh, along with Vidura. Yeah. So in Swami's Bhagavatam, it didn't happen that way, but yes, there is stories there as well where that has happened. Yeah. All right.
See, when you were reading all this, the thing that came to my mind was Dharmaraja. In that sense, it is. I was considering more like all the material attractions. I was kind of, that was the simile I was able to get, that that is the material attraction that always calls you and cries for you, and those are the, and when you leave that and go,
Uh-huh.
that is the part that you leave and go, then you get the bliss, and then you just
So you're
automatically
saying Dhritarashtra was able to do that.
do that. That is what I could kind of, that was how my thought was going, more than, than him being loving and all. That is the attraction, that is the material that calls you, and, that is the one constantly going. Because Dhritarashtra, Dharmaraja, whatever he did, and Vidura did the right thing, because had they told that they were leaving, they would never have, Dharmaraja would never have allowed them to go. So Dharmaraja, even though is basically, it is the materialistic world that is kind of pulling you back, right, from doing the right thing. So that is how I could kind of, create a connection in there.
So I think there is many ways that Vidura could have done it. Basically tell them later. You don't have to tell them right now. Don't. It's just that I feel not informing at all is hard. Whereas there are many ways to inform. Even in those days there were people who could have gone and informed at a later time, right?
It's like cutting that.
Yeah, he's cutting all of that. I
tie,
agree. Yeah.
Everything. That's it. That
Yeah.
leaving that, and going. So that is how I could understand the whole.
Yeah. Saira.
I've lost my thought. I wanted to say something, but I think if you look at it, had Dhritarashtra not, I mean, or as if Vidura had not gone and told, probably Dhritarashtra and Gandhari would have lived longer, right?
Right. Mhm.
So, but he pulled, yeah, it is whatever. So Vidura pulled them out,
Correct.
and they were very happy discussing spiritual things. Whereas, so when you are discussing spiritual matters, you're happy. Okay. Whereas here, Dharmaraja, he's emotionally so upset. He's just going up and down, beating his chest for that, because of the materialistic thing. So
Right.
if you're in the materialistic world, you're going to go through these ups and downs. Whereas if you're in the spiritual, you're going to be peaceful. So that is the message that I can see. So, and then he passes away. He said death is not a big thing at all in our
Yeah.
so it's going, they're going to be born again. So it's not a, it's just a happening event that happens.
So I just wanted to bring everyone back to the dharma of this, right? In this chapter, I think it entails a lot of underlying dharma, as that's how I saw it. So I thought we could talk about dharma and what Swami basically talked about what is dharma, and I will always come back to dharma, obviously, in later chapters as well. But right now, I thought this was a great time to start talking about what is the right action. What does dharma mean? Right? At a spiritual level, we can all rote learn and say it. Like, dharma is to, know ourselves and know that we are beyond just this five senses, five layers, whatever it is. But the five koshas, I mean, but it is not that. It is not easy to get there.
by dharma, if you mean the role, for example, dharma could, I mean, like Dharmaraja's role is as a king, as a nephew. Okay, two roles he has. So if you look at it, as a king, he has a role to protect everybody. So that is a role. And as a nephew, he has reverence towards his uncle. And so obviously he wants to make sure that they are safe. And
Yeah.
especially because they both of, I mean, he is Dhritarashtra is blind and Gandhari is blindfolded anyway. So both
Yeah.
of them can't see. So in this situation, whatever Dharmaraja's dharma
Yeah.
is whatever he has done. Basically,
Right.
going up and down and all that is that if anybody were there who is affectionate, they're going to do that. I think he's performed his role correctly there.
Right.
And Vidura's role, if you're Vidura's dharma,
Yeah.
is to enlighten. See, that is why I think Vidura, I mean, you're saying that Vidura being so learned,
Right.
his voice, I don't know if at least I could see that Dhritarashtra listened to Vidura because of his learned scholarly this one, because he was his brother. So
Right.
he listened to him. Otherwise, he would have even gone with him even before. So
Yeah.
probably. But so that is
So I think the time matters, right? So sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Uma Uvacha.
Uma Uvacha.
Vidura knows that hold on, what am I trying? Their end was coming.
Uh-huh.
He wanted them to get realization.
Mhm.
Then she also adds, also Dhritarashtra was not strong enough to resist Dharmaraja's objections. But she's surprised, Uma is surprised that Dhritarashtra was able to control this mind so quickly and attain moksha.
I'm not sure if we attain
Moksha. Yeah.
That I'm not
he
sure.
just passed away.
That
Yes.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree with, I also didn't, I don't know about, he was, he was able to do everything, but I'm sure that he got, because in those days, that was the right action to do. They are supposed to leave everything and go off to the forest. Kali age, that's not what it is, but we have to think about that.
No, that forest is right there in our house. Okay. we have to consider that. So so we have to lead a life of living in the forest even within our house. In
Right.
other words, that's
Yeah,
what it is.
that's a nice way to say it.
That's what I was about to say. You keep doing your duty. Vidura had been telling Dhritarashtra for so many years
Right.
the right thing, but he did not listen to it. So he did not stop guiding him at the in all the times. But
Right.
when the time came, he listened to it, and that was the end of it. So the time matters, definitely time matters.
Right. Everywhere, everything. All right. So with that, Om, would you like to read this, please?
What is meant by dharma? What is the essence of dharma? Can common people lead a happy life and survive if they stick to dharma? Naturally, these doubts confuse the mind in the course of life. Solving them is necessary, ever urgent, even urgent. As soon as dharma is mentioned, the ordinary person takes it to mean giving alms, feeding and providing lodging to pilgrims, adherence to one's traditional profession or craft, law abiding nature, discrimination between right and wrong, the pursuit of one's innate nature over the freaks of one's own mind, the fusion of one's fondness, desires, and so on. Of course, it is a long time since the spotless countenance of Dharma was tarnished beyond recognition. Beautiful fields and groves run wild with neglect and soon become unrecognizable. Bush, bushland and thorny jungle. Pine trees are hewn by greedy people, and the shape of the landscape is changed. With the passage of time, people get accustomed to the new state of things and don't notice the transformation, the decline. This has also happened to dharma. Everyone has to acquaint himself with the outlines of dharma, expounded in the Vedas, scriptures, sastras, and Puranas, misunderstood by incompetent, intelligent, unbridled emotion, and impure reasoning. These works have been grossly diluted and their glory has suffered grievously. Just as raindrops from the clear blue sky get colored and contaminated when they fall on the soil, the unsullied message of the ancient sages, rishis, the, ex- the example of these shining deeds, and the bright, untarnished urges behind their actions are all turned into ugly caricatures of their original grandeur by un- uncultured interpreters and scholars. Books written for children contain illustration to clarify the text, but the children spend their time with their pictures, forgetting what what they are intended to clarify. In the same way, the unwary and the uneducated mistake the rituals, which are designed to illustrate the grand truths, as profoundly real in themselves and ignore the truth that they were meant to elucidate. Travelers moving along the road rest for a while in wayside shelters, but during their stay they damage by neglect or misuse the very structure that gives them rest. So too, the dull and perverse alter the very face of Vedic morality and deceive the world into believing that their handiwork is that the Vedas teach. When such a mauling of Dharma took place, when the face of Dharma suffered disfigurement at the hands of the enemies of God, the Lord responded to the call of the gods and the godly and saved the world from ruin by restoring right and truth in the field of dharma and karma, in both ideal and practice. Now, who can cure the present blindness? Man, man has to slay the sixfold beast of inner enemies that lead him to disaster: lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, and hate. Thus, only can dharma be restored.
Thank you, Om. I know it was a very long discourse, but basically, Swami, it's almost like the tone that Vidura had taken, that he is telling us about how Dharma has fallen, right? So now we have made it okay that Dharma will not be followed in certain ways. That also Swami points out very clearly. And he says that, even if there, we have with passage of time, people got accustomed to the new state of things, and they're okay with the transformation of the fall of dharma. So in a lot of ways, can we in our lives, at least, whether we do it to the next person or not, our lives bring about that dharma, that action. I don't know. Sometimes I think about it. Sometimes I'm not thinking exactly what the dharma is. I am always talking about what the other person might want to hear from me versus the dharma in itself.
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Is dharma the same through the eons, or does it change? Right?
I thought okay, that's the question. So through the yawns, or there is only one dharma, right? That we have to follow as human. It depends on the state of your life, as the role that you play. That has got some
No,
defined ways, right?
no. For example, before they said Brahmins, they have to only do the studying of
ritual.
Vedas and rituals and all that, and yajna has to be done. Everything, Sandhya Vandanam has to be done. So now Brahmins have moved into other spheres where they don't have the time for this. So are they forgetting the dharma? Is that so? The question is, should they continue? Is that the dharma, or follow the path? I mean, whatever is the latest thing going on,
So
and what actually is dharma? He said that giving alms is not dharma. What constitutes the dharma? And if first thing we need to understand
correct.
that, and the
Agreed.
second thing is, does it change through you know the eons, generation after generation after generation. Does it change? I need to
Yeah,
understand better.
I agree with you that I
Uh, it's a large scope to define dharma, because one one thing I know is there is yoga dharma, which varies based on the time. There is another dharma which is never changing. We don't know the definitions of those dharmas which retain for long time, never changing throughout all these yugas, because we are talking from all the way from Satya Yuga coming through Treta, Dwapara, and every yuga there was different dharmas. Once dharma moved into the other yuga, was not really followed or stick to that one. So the question is, what are the dharmas that stays forever, ever changing, and what are the dharmas that are fit for that particular time period? That's a two different things here. So I didn't know what are the dharmas that we need to follow, never leave them because they are standing forever. That I don't know exactly, but at least I know that dharma will change. Some of the rules, some of the practices, traditions will change as per the time. The second question, you are saying that, okay, so Brahmins are doing. So I don't know, I do not want to go into much details, but if you think of that way, it's not the particular sect that needs to practice something. Brahmin means it's not somebody who entitled with that one. It's who achieves the Brahmana, the knowledge. It's called Brahmana those days. It's not a caste, or it is not assigned to
right. This
someone.
was before the caste system,
Before,
yeah.
there was no caste system when Vedic was there. So that way, somebody is practicing, it's nothing wrong in that one, because it's knowledge. Whoever attains that knowledge is called Brahman. That's where Adi Shankaracharya is questioned by Chandala, what you're asking. So that, apart from that, so those are the things which we need to clarify when we are going, okay, what we are missing here, what dharma we need to follow going forward.
Sairam, this is the thought for the day that we read last Saturday, which is very relevant. Okay, so I'm going to read that one. Okay, embodiments of love. In this world, every individual has a mother. The entire humanity has also one mother, and we should try to know her. The mother is truth. Those who follow this mother will never face any problems. This mother, truth, remains the same in all periods of time and in all three worlds. And this mother transcends all the three attributes, sattva, rajas, and tamas. The physical mother may die or go to some other place, but this divine mother, truth, remains one and the same beyond time and space. And to every individual, it is therefore necessary that every person follows this noble divine mother. Who is father? Wisdom is the true father. Wisdom is not ephemeral, mundane, physical, secular knowledge. Advaita darshanam jnanam. Wisdom confers the experience of non-duality. So truth and wisdom are the true mother and father of man. Dharma is the brother. Dharma may vary depending upon time, country, religion, and tradition. However, Dharma is loved by the entire humanity, irrespective of caste, creed, nationality, and religion. This brother is the very embodiment of love. On this basis, the Vedas gave utmost importance to truth and righteousness. In the great epic Ramayana, Lakshmana personified the principle of Dharma. When he fainted in the battlefield, Rama lamented, saying that he could get a consort like Sita and mother like Kaushalya, but not a brother like Lakshmana. Rama said that his divinely blossomed because he had a brother like Lakshmana. Okay, so so basically what Swami says is dharma is not fixed, as Dhananjay had mentioned. Dharma, maybe there is some, see what constitutes as a dharma that won't change in time, probably that is the truth. That will never change. Dharma is, it can change, but it's what is universally accepted as the norm by the general public. That is what I think as dharma. So in those days, there is a dharma for the Raja, like a king. So that is what everybody agreed, that this is the role of a king. So that is why it became a dharma. So, and that can change. Now there is no king. So the government, everybody decides what is to be the role of a government, what they need to do, and all that. So that is a dharma. So, but coming back to here,
Please go ahead.
I'm kind of digressing. I
No,
think,
no
but,
worries. Yeah, please
but
go ahead.
whatever
I know where you're getting.
what is the question that you had asked?
So I wanted to talk about how Swami says dharma is deteriorated. I wanted to start off by talking about that and how can dharma be upheld in today's life that we are leading, and what can we do to make sure that our actions, I mean, we cannot control somebody else's, but our actions should be dharmic in a lot of ways. So one thing with the truth though, sorry Manoji, give me 1 second. So the truth is always the same, and that is the true self, right? That is the only truth that through yawns is that we are divine. We and God are one. Swami always says you and I are one. So we know that, but the idea that that truth has prevailed through the year, through the yawns, that has changed. In I think in Satya Yuga, I'm assuming everyone was always aware at some point. Like Rama was super aware, but somewhere everyone knew their jobs and their stuff to and as we prolonged through Kali age, now I think we have missed that truth completely. Advaita is not really a common ground for a lot of people.
So basically, what Someji was asking, what is the definition of dharma?
Yes.
So Venkatji has tried to answer that. So what are the norms? So
Right.
Satya is truth is one big thing which has traveled throughout. So government and the norms which are publicly accepted, I think that
That is
becomes
based
the-
on the country that you live in.
Exactly. So time, place, and name, time, place. So according to the area where you live in and the society you live in, so you have to follow those norms. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to find the answer. That's what I think he's mentioning.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, so for example, I mean, there's always this contention, right? For example, here we say people in Afghanistan, the government in Afghanistan is suppressing women, and if women are not given freedom. If the women in Afghanistan don't accept that, if they are against that, if they want freedom, then what the government is doing is not right. But if they are all accepting and they believe that Islam is like that and they believe all of that, then as a another nation, I think it is not our role to enforce that. That's what I feel. I think that is their dharma. That is
I don't agree on
I don't know. I don't know if I'm opening a
group. Yeah,
Yeah, you're
particular point.
talking wrong group to bring
Yes.
that up.
Sorry. No, so Dhananjay, Brahmin was just an example. I am coming from the part as a mother, right? So even Swami says that mothers have to be at home taking care of that. I am not a person who can do that. I have not done that. So that means, have I deviated from my dharma? Have I not done the right
Yeah,
things
yeah,
in my
I
life?
agree.
You know?
I had that thought too.
Yeah.
Because in
so,
my household, as everyone knows, Amit is the mother. No, I'm just saying.
So, yeah.
I
So,
mean, he's just
so
born that way.
did I not follow the dharma?
I agree.
Did I? So then I would not be true to myself. If I had done that part, I would, because that is not me being at home and sitting in kid. So then I would not be true to myself. So that is where my dharma question came, right? So and you had the question, Swami saying that,
Yeah,
no, the
he says
question
it
that
here.
you said, why does Swami say dharma has deteriorated through years? So yeah, one thing that came to me was like, at that time, there was a well-defined hero and defined
Villain.
villain,
But
right?
that's not always true, ma.
No, that at that time, people were, at least that is what my understanding is about the. Nowadays, we all have in us both the things, and maybe probably more of the villain than the
Yeah.
good part, just because of us being totally bound to the materialistic world.
No, but even that's the fun part about reading Mahabharata, right? Every character has has a history of being good and has a history of being bad. Mahabharata has defined that. It's not, see, when there is so many characters in there that have, even looking at Ramayana, Ravana is not bad. In fact, he's one of the most learned people. Yeah, and he actually took care of his kingdom. Even being a demon, he did the right actions for the longest of times until he saw Sita. So unfortunately for him, he saw Sita. But my point being that I think through all our scriptures, they've always shown that that happens. The story of Narada, do you remember where he gets, loses where he's supposed to go, and forgets Narayana and leads a life, and then remembers Narayana again. Yeah, so I think we have to always bring ourselves back to something that's something I don't understand.
So I will try to, I don't know, there is no right or wrong answers or right or right. So this is a very gray area, really speaking, because you spoke about mother's dharma, like you didn't. So that is what the relative, right? Is dharma for you is different than dharma for your family. So suppose somebody is there at home taking care of the kids. Okay, some person, some parent is taking. It's not necessary mother should be always taking care of kids. Dharma is one of the parent is taking care of the kids. That is good enough. It's all relative. Who is taking that role? Maybe you're taking a lead position in the home, taking care of the household, and other person is, and that's fine. That is a kind of gray area. What is my dharma? What is others' dharma?
So
Right?
no, but nowadays the genders are also kind of mixed, Saira.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
when
Yeah.
we are talking dharma, women had a certain dharma, right? Now the dharma of the woman has also changed.
Change. Yeah, that's what
Okay,
I'm
she is
saying. Yeah.
equally responsible for the parent. Like I have my niece,
Right.
nephews, they both of them take care of
That's
their parents.
exactly the point I'm making, right?
Yeah.
Dharma, what she referred in this case is a relative. It's not fixed dharma that mother or lady should be always taking care of the family. That's why I'm saying dharma changes according to the scenario and time and the
Right?
situation.
Then why did Swami say
So
that it fell?
I will try to answer the second part of that one. So let's say there is another dharma. You are doing a job in India. I'm taking India as a context background. So everybody is paid, but taking bribe to do the job is adharma, right? It's very clear definition. There is no gray area in that one. So if you are given paid to the job, suppose there is an officer, is an IAS officer who has been paid to do his job. If you go back and look, corruption everywhere. So now that's what Swami is very particular about, because this is very clear definition of dharma there. You do your job, but you are taking bribe and making lots of money in a different ways and from people squeezing money. That's adharma. That's very particularly where is more pointing out there are definitely some of the areas that people are violating dharma and not following them. I think that's
Very good
those are the
point,
things
Saira.
that we need to
Yes.
consider.
Yeah.
The truth prevails, that is a standard thing. That's so doing staying with the truth will never change. That is a standard dharma. What Swami mentioned about the mother's job was according to that era, according to that geographical location and that timings. Times have changed. Women you were not working outside the home and during those that time, most of them. My mother was working, you guys are working. So definitely those jobs have changed. That thing. So lately I came to know, I went to Delhi. So in Delhi, they have assigned all the government, the sub-registrar offices. We went to sell a property. They have assigned it to women. All New Delhi, all are assigned to women. They supposedly be more honest.
Oh, really?
But my realtor told even this lady has taken 1.5 lakhs of rupees. That's a standard thing now. So for signing of my documents, that's it.
Right.
So that's adharma. That's what he was mentioning. So that which is not true. Taking bribe for your job is
So
adharma. It's a
let me,
standard thing.
so I understand. So let us stop right there, right? So okay, so as a devotee, as someone who recognizes that that is a wrong action, I should be able to stand and say, I am not going to pay this, right? But that is not the age that we are in, because I cannot say that. I mean, I can never say it in India, forget it. I'm always scared for my life there. But other than that, if you want to not follow the norm, it takes away from your general duties as a human being. If I want to fight adharma in any way, it takes time. It takes a lot of resource.
Yes, I agree, Sarah. I mean, I missed what Dhananjay
Jai Bhai.
mentioned, but I think I kind of understood. So that's exactly what I mean. That is what Swami says. Is dharma is deteriorated. It doesn't mean that as an individual we may not be able to fight it. We may have to fall in that norm, but as a collective, we may be able to fight it. So just like how Gandhi, as an individual, he could not have he could not fight the British Empire,
Right.
but he formed a huge group, and he did stand for dharma, and he achieved the independence for India.
Sairam. So let's talk about, that's why we bring Gandhi. Gandhiji, yes, I absolutely agree. But if you really look at it, he from his duty perspective as a father,
I
you
agree.
know, so those things, right? We have to. I mean, do we balance it, or do we just, so that is a calling that we have to be very specific about. That was his calling, and yes, he did it, and phenomenal. But those are things that for normal people, I mean, when I say normal, my daily life is just catching up to me by 6-7 o'clock in the night, right?
I think the answer is you need to follow the dharma, which is for greater good. If you're violating other small dharmas that one or two persons gets affected, no. If your dharma following a dharma which affects a huge, I mean, greater good is always a better dharma. That way we can think.
Yeah, very good point, Sairam. Yeah.
So
Yeah, please go ahead.
Raki has a comment here. She said dharma is peace within you. So if we want peace, we need to practice dharma in any situation. think-
Again, I have again million questions about that, but yes,
That is a very gray zone.
yeah, very
Peace in
gray
you,
zone,
very gray zone.
because it's not easy. Some things we know there's adharmic, but we still have to do what we need to do, right? So yeah, peace is also so peace is wavering now. And if you want to connect dharma to peace, the only truth is, who am I? That is the only way to get that peace, because you know all of this is transient.
Sairam, see, coming back to this bribing thing, right? Manoj mentioned about a lady who is also getting, right? So in that situation, you have I mean, I know my nephew went to sell the house, and what was like a 500 rupees government fee for that one. People asked 40,000 rupees, and they had to pay. So they had to give under the table, right? So it is there. Now that is the system. That is what the dharma that has gone down. That's what Swami says. It is deteriorated because everybody knows it's wrong. The people collecting it knows that it is wrong. People giving it knows that it is wrong. And if you don't give it, you don't get your job done. So in that situation, as an individual, you have to fall in line with it because it's a collective dharma that has gone down. So to change that, I think only the a group or the government can take action against it. I think that's how it can happen.
And
Individual-
that is why, I mean, we used to read it, but we have seen it also. Any money earned with adharma is
Yeah.
going to give you suffering.
Correct.
Take
Yeah.
it, I mean, take it as granted, write it on a stone, will give you suffering, will give you suffering. There's no doubt about it. Who are doing it, their kids
In
are
that
getting
circle,
spoiled, it's a
yeah.
circle. And at the end, we have seen it so many times. So that is a warning for us. Avoid. I mean, we cannot escape giving it because you cannot get the job done, but avoid taking it, avoid taking all those bribes. You know, we used to practice in India, we used to get a lot of bribes from the pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Write my drug. Here's a ticket for you to go to Goa. Here's a ticket for you to go Bangkok, whatever. You know, it is tempting. It is tempting, but you can keep accepting it and then not do the job. So, or how to resist. I mean, it's a part of the system. But at the end of the day, use your brain, is it the right medicine or not? If it's right medicine, then this medicine versus this medicine doesn't make a difference. But you should not be inclined to prescribe it, just because you got bribed.
Yeah. So all of that, go ahead. We still have time. We have time today till 6:30. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So in that case, how can we, like you said, how can dharma be upheld in that case? So dharma is deteriorated. We all know adharmic actions. We have defined one of them being bribery. Okay.
Yeah, no. So what Manoj ji said, right? You prescribe the right medicine, but don't take that money, right? You prescribe, that is that is our dharma. We will prescribe, okay, if two medicines are the same, I will prescribe the one that is cheaper for that patient. Or if the two medicines are not good, the one where he's bribing, which is better, I'll give it, but I won't take that money. That is supposed to be our dharma. That's what I think.
Yes, Sairam, but there is a pressure. If you're an odd person out, for example, this Kolkata case, what there is deeper angle there, because it looks like this lady knew something about something going on, fishy
Yes.
going on, and she must have been a very upright person, and she got killed. So could be. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't
right.
know the real reason, but I'm saying that is one possibility. So to stand as an odd person, not falling in that norm, is a big challenge. It's a very big challenge.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and
we
it
got
depends
we
on-
got to be aware of that.
It depends on the individual person, right? If your conscience is pricking you so bad that you just can't do that wrong thing, then what she did is right? So we have to understand from each one's perspective. My dad was in a position where so many people came bribing him, but he never took one. And there were many things that did not happen right because of that for him. But for him, that was his dharma, is not to take the money, no matter what.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is individually how much you are tuned to that aspect is,
Yeah. So you should be also able to bear the consequences.
Exactly.
That is the piece that many fathers, I'm just saying, because I know of people who are in that dilemma. But if their child needs to go to a good school, not the government school, they need that 40,000 bribe that's coming down their way because the government is not really paying. So this is also their own karmic, the cycle goes on and on, like Manojji's pointed out, it will go this way or that way. But you should be able to bear the consequences of that action. And that, I think, is, I mean, I can speak for myself. I come from the angle of fear all the time. Fear, safety, whatever it is. So my angle is always going to be along those lines. I know Gandhiji's was, and he was able to overcome that. He did that in a very positive, and when you read his book, yeah, there's so much to learn from how he used to fear. Even simple things like darkness used to fear him. I mean, he never really went out. Whereas he was able to fight and go into jail, and jails are not like the way the movies show, right? There were everything from mosquitoes to rats, he writes, right? But he was able to do that. He was a Jain. He would not eat anything, but he somehow he had to eat to survive in jail, whatever they made. So again, that whole idea of standing up for the wrongful action, something takes more than just talking about it.
I think the second point, how can dharma be upheld, is a very challenging question. There is no one single answer for that reason. So that's where the fear comes. And who can actually, whose job is that to uphold dharma? Is mine? Is somebody else? So it's all individuals' question. Do I need to stand for dharma?
Correct.
You decide, right? At least fight for it, not necessarily losing your life or anything. At least wherever, to whatever extent you can do it, and wherever you have to drop it. But because of your action, somebody might be getting inspired. If you are standing, somebody asking bribe, and you stand up, I'm not giving, I will fight for you. After maybe 1 month, 2 months, you might give up, but it might have inspired somebody else in the office. Somebody might have seen you standing up and saying no for that one.
Right.
So that's okay. The second point is, if you look back about Dharma, the Shivaji's mother is the reason why Shivas is brought up like that. He fought, he stood up for everything, and he stood up till the last day of his life to stick to Dharma. And he respected and he followed whatever in his power. So I think it's all how we rise our families, how we rise our society. That's where the bottom point comes to us.
Very good point, Sairam. Yeah, please.
Sairam, if you take this country, speeding, right? So when there is a speed limit of 55 miles per hour, the norm is everybody goes 10 miles over.
55, yeah.
Okay. 55 is written there, but everybody goes 10 miles over, and that's accepted. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you go 20 miles over, there is a police officer who would be hiding somewhere,
Yes.
and you have that fear. So that dharma is being brought. I mean, everybody, when they put 55, maybe the road conditions are fit for 65. They know that people will be going 10 miles over. So so the system is set up. So that is how the dharma is upheld. So if you want a dharma, for example, a similar thing to extend to the bribe menace in India, there has to be
An acceptable norm.
acceptable government which would enforce that. Or when I say enforce, as you said, 500 rupees is probably not one.
Yeah.
Say justify that. Make the actual fee 20,000
Yeah.
rupees and give that to the person who is working. Change that system.
Right.
Then they won't seek that. I mean, probably won't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that.
Exactly. I so much agree with you. You know, the system and the government. I mean, I'm not trying to escape from my responsibility, but once we elect a government, then that becomes the job of the government to make the system so strict and so robust. When I came to US 5 years ago, I went back after 6 months. I said, people I met there, I told, in America, people are so honest. People are so honest.
Right.
Even on the roads, they give respect to others. You go first, I'll go later. And you keep the house open. I was in Maine. Even the doors are open, no one will steal from your house.
Yeah.
One person from the group said, Manojji, it's not that people are honest. It's a system which has provided such tough laws that made people honest. No one is honest in this world. It's only the system, We are all made like the same
I agree.
chip. God has put the same chip in all of us. The same chip. It's a system. We are all honest and we are all dishonest. It's how the system controls us. We try to. So they said, I really appreciated that person pointing out, Manojji, the system. Then when I came back, I realized the moment that system is not working, people will be dishonest. People will be.
So if you really look at it, right, I just remembered an example. We did this and we do events at the temple. Not the Sai events. I'm talking, we had the Telugu event at the temple. The temple was left by everybody in a trash. Like, the food that's dropped has been left where it is. People who were volunteering to clean up, most of our Sai brothers here, they were actually cleaning up, stuff that people would have cleaned behind themselves. In the same person, the same family, when we meet at the park, for example, will not do that, because the park is a city property. There is rules and regulations, and they are really defining those, right? So I agree with you, Manojji. My point being, you're totally right. If there is that law that they will put into effect, because at this, when you go to the city park and rent that and you don't give them back the way they gave it to you, you lose $300. Simple.
So I would take to the lighter vein. It's so deep and very, very emotional conversation for last 15 minutes. Okay, everything works outside except in India. Okay, that's fine. That is how Indian system works. Though I think what Venkatji, I was thinking about it. Even let's say I was joking actually. Even if you give 1 crore salary people will still bribe because it's a nature in nature in that person. You give him money because there is a saying, a milkman. So when he squeezes milk, it's so pure, but his mind don't accept. He will add at least one drop of water in that before selling it. That's a human nature. I'm just joking. Anyway.
Yeah.
And
No,
actually, the why people do it, some people do it for a thrill of doing it. That, giving something mischievous.
Government employees' salaries are, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs.
yeah,
They
no,
can
please
afford
talk.
They
Talking.
can afford the school fees and everything.
Right,
It's
right.
not that they can't afford, but they want iPhones, iPads, and
Yeah, they need, yeah. Can you just speak in the mic? Otherwise, people online cannot hear.
Sure. The robust system that Manoj mentioned, I think I agree with that. In Singapore,
Yes.
nobody will, dare to throw the chewing gums, or
Yeah.
in Dubai, they won't, think of stealing anything.
Yeah.
So I think the same people when go to the other countries and a different robust, strict systems, they will obey,
Yeah.
obviously.
Absolutely. Great point. Yes. No, Sabita. Subhadra, go ahead first, ma.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to bring Raki's point about dharma, that what she mentioned, peace. So this is exactly what she's trying to say, that we all realize what is not right. We still, for the thrill, sometimes we take chances. We speed. So in our heart, we know. So we are losing our peace when we are speeding. But we want to say, hey, let's see if we are lucky today. So what Raki is saying is we are peaceful if we know that what we are doing is dharma.
Yeah. Bhargav, yeah, please.
So I was a question I have, since we went and talked about how the dharma is decided based on the society level, how do we as an individual affect that and try to uphold dharma as an idea
Yeah,
if
I
it's
agree.
more in the society level?
So,
So right now, Roe versus Wade, right? That has been removed from this. So we know that that's not right. So our dharma is to all of us go and cast our ballots, right? So that is our dharma. So that's how we have to do that dharma in order to make changes to it there.
Okay, is that the only way, or is there?
I think we cannot police, right? So there is a law that police is there, everything else is there. So we have to do what we can in that given circumstances where we have all the chains, tied to us, and we cannot do much. Whatever we can do, we have to do.
Sairam, even though Dhananjay mentioned in the lighter vein that that mindset of the person squeezing the milk
yeah.
to add even one drop of water is itself based on the society only. So it's that social dharma that is dictating that. So in the olden days, when Rama's this one in that yuga, that thought would not have occurred. A milk is milk. That's it. So it cannot be tainted in any way. So now in this society we are doing so. As an individual, I think it's up to that conscience, individual conscience, and that will again be dictated by what is accepted as the norm. For example, a person seeking under the table, when he sees everybody else seeking it, he feels that okay, that's the norm. So for this job, I need to get 20,000 rupees. So he just justifies to himself that is what is right for him to do. So he just gets it done.
Right.
So,
But to answer Bhargav's question, what can I do today? Right? Those are small things that we have to keep in mind. What you think is right for your society tomorrow, right? For example, not smoking indoors. It took so long for government to make it a federal law that you can't smoke indoors, right? But there were places that it was never allowed, like in a church, right? It was never allowed in a temple. So why was that still there, right? So in all of those factors, we have to use our discernment, the ability to kind of use our intellect to make that judgment for that given time and society. Yeah.
Then another question I just popped up is, what if my dharma is slightly different from another person's dharma, then how would, if we both want to make that change to society, then how would that work out? If we would,
You're watching US politics. That is exactly what it is.
I mean, yeah,
Somebody else's
but
dharma
then
is
would
different.
I not be doing something dharmic then, if I couldn't get to achieve that what I wanted as the dharma? Or
So I think again, I miss Shankaranji on this one because Uma and Shankaran have always talked about dharma as a society versus your own personal dharma, right? Personal dharma depends on the role that you play at that given, time. The societal dharma is what we are talking about when it comes to the country or where you want to place yourself, right? The societal one is much more easier because it's defined by certain regulations and rules, right?
yes, but isn't the personal dharma also connected sort of with the societal dharma in the sense?
Absolutely. And that's the reason I'm saying that there is that distinction always. And that's why we see today's politics the way
So-
it is.
So, if I may, so I grew up in Singapore for 5 years. I can tell you, so that was 40 something years ago. Okay, as in at you think now there's no gum, and no, this is how it's always been. Like they trash bags, all that. It's like a certain way, and that continues. And then you come here too. So you're talking. I think sometimes when we're talking about the society, we tend to think big, right? Yes, voting is a right, but something as simple as you go to the Walmart, you go to your shopping, instead of leaving your cart, buy the car, just put it like just because somebody is paid to do that, that doesn't mean just go ahead and do that. Or at work. Okay, we were just, y'all are talking about the temple. Work is the worst place. Brand new building, people don't clean after the kitchen, whatever. How do you live? How would you do that at home, right? So I think those are like the little, however and I also think it's sometimes people I think in this country, how it is there's a sense of, I think that has changed over the years, uh, a sense of ownership. So
Right. Mhm.
I am going to take care of, I'm going to go for a walk and I saw trash. So I'm going to come back home, grab a plastic bag, and maybe for the next 30 feet, I'm just going to go grab all the garbage and then put it, so, uh, those are the little things that I feel I can do for society. Because yes, I can vote, but all this other stuff, my influence is only so much. So sometimes we have to realize what is my influence and how can I do it? I'm always of the mindset of what can I do locally, because what I do locally will affect globally. And going back to what Subhadra said, right? Sometimes when you're doing something or you're acting a certain way or you behave a certain way, people will come to you and they will, whether you realize it or not, that's what they do. So it's the little things. And what is that saying? Integrity is when you act, when you do, you know what I'm saying? Like as if nobody's watching you, as
Yeah.
opposed to watching you.
Right. Mhm.
Because guess what? Swami is watching me. That's what I always think. So that is, I hope I didn't, like when we talk about dharma, I feel like what I am doing for myself and how I act in the society is the same. And I am just one person. And if each and every one of us, one person, we do that one thing every day, then that kind of builds up. It's interesting. This is off topic. I always find it interesting. I've never been to India. I always find it interesting with India, or I'm just using India as an example. Like everybody goes to the temple, to Tirupati, this, that, like, but yet, like, they're just, when you're watching on TV, they're like fighting to go. I mean, like, you're supposed to act a certain way with God, and then I don't understand the whole concept. I'm like completely, oh, even like here in the temple, I've seen it, not just like you're going there, you're spending all this money, giving all this money God and temple, but then like you don't take care of it. Like
pushing.
that doesn't make sense to me. Like, but it's I'm not. That's even if you go to church, go to the Vatican. You know, I
Yeah.
went years ago. I went 20 years ago. My friends went last year. They said we can't even see. Like you people are just pushing away. You know, that's anywhere, right? So I find it so like contradictory sometimes, like
Yeah.
you know, temples or whatever. But but Bargo, go ahead. I want to hear what else you have to
No,
say.
so I was
He started all his 100
Yeah.
questions now ready.
no.
No, 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 no.
Go
that's
ahead,
a
go
great-
ahead, Bargo, go
go
ahead.
Just joking.
Yeah. So no, what a question that came up as well is, so what if society expects something which I personally view as adharmic? Then
that is what is going on. People
yeah,
have
no,
the
but then no, but what if what should I do then to make sure that I am following my own dharma, personal dharma?
so that's why you vote the right way, right? Because no one else has the
wait,
women's
so,
right of
So
body.
even if they expect something adharmic, do I have to just follow it because that's what society viewed as dharma?
That's a good question.
So
Is that the law?
Yeah, so I was watching yesterday Obama's speech, talking to what is his name, that Muslim guy, Indian Muslim. He's no, 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 no. No, 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 not Zakaria. Yeah, so he's a stand-up comedian. He was
I know.
asking very good. Yeah, very good. And then he was saying that
Hassan
Minaj Hassan. Yes, yes. So in that one, he asked, so you see all these things that are happening, and you know that it is not right. What do? You just stand there watching it? He asked Obama. He said that sometimes, yes, you have to do that. He said, I'll give you a example where, there was this Florida shooting and no, the Florida, there was this huge shooting and the parents, they lost their children and they walked all the way from Florida to DC to get a kind of a law made so that, for this gun control. And they came and they lobbied, did all these things. They were the people who were affected, the children had died. And these Congress people, they did nothing. They did nothing. And I was in the Rose Garden talking, and I was like about to throw that vegetable down. But then there are some games you will lose, some games you will win, but does not mean that the battle is lost. You have to continue fighting for it, is what he said. So yes, some cases that is not dharmic, that that, so you have to continue fighting for it. That's all you can do.
it's a very, very good example. So yeah, go
You
ahead.
have to follow that adharmic thing. You still
No, no, not adharmic.
from
But
the
no
society.
action is okay in that scenario only because, just like he said, sometimes you have to just see it happening because and hope, and you do the right action by talking and kind of putting
So
yourself
I will
out there.
continue the very good examples of Majay. I know this is the always hot topic here, right? So in Obama's case, he couldn't do anything because the law has to be passed before he signs it,
Correct.
and it doesn't work out because it's a Second Amendment in the U.S.
Right.
and they have the right to possess the weapon. So nobody can change it because it's an amendment. Okay. So if that is the case, if somebody is in that situation, as a person, you do not have any control on the situation, but at least educate the people going forward.
That's right.
That's what you can do from your angle. Suppose you are in that situation, the only other aspect is to go and educate the society, get more support from the society, then the law will change, right? So that's what you can do as an individual when something is contradicting for the greater good and you want to stand up for greater good. That's the another one. So again, going back to the Singapore versus Indian
Yeah.
disparities
2 minutes.
here, we have 2 minutes. So then I'll wind up one statement. I'll joke with a joke. Things don't work out in India because it's a chicken farm.
Yeah. I don't know which group. Let me. Okay, no, that's fine. It's not regarding the study circle. So we will. Okay. Yeah, so so there is no other message for the study circle. I know there are a couple of messages from Rakhi, and we will address it in the next one. So we will end with Om and Three Shantis. Thank you all for your participation today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sai Ram.
Sairam. Many of you would know that our